track at the wall. We are tied.
Look at this. He's slammed it forward. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Dropping a big leg. Over for the cover. It's over. Unbelievable.
High fly ball into right field. She is gone. Austin, he got it. The starter. Mike Tyson in. Austin is the champion. Stone Cold. Stone Cold. Stone Cold.
Now the 2-2. Well hit down the left field line. Way back in.
Touch a ball, Joe. You'll never hit a bigger home run in your life.
Oh my God, no! Mankind did it! Nick Foley did it! No, Stone Cold did it! Mankind has achieved his dream and the dream of everyone else who's been told you can't do it! No, you can't do it! You can't do it! No matter what, got money on my mind, I can never get enough. And every time I step up in the building, everybody hands go up.
I'm jealous you get the pen. I meant to grab one. Do the pen flip for me, please. There it is. All right. Welcome to WWE WAR Wrestling Above Replacement. JT and Marcus back at you here off our hiatus. This is our second episode back, number 71, though, of the series. So if you're new here, go back and revisit, or at least go back to the last one to kind of catch up on what has happened since we've returned, because we're at a whole new graphical world on WWE WAR. If you're listening to us on Podbean or any other podcast application on North-South Connection, I would tell you this is one you want to watch on YouTube, because there's a lot of numbers, a lot of categories, a lot of stats we're going to throw at you, and seeing them, I think, will help crystallize things a little bit better as you go. So on YouTube, thanks to our producer, Not the Tool Man Tim, we're going to have all kind of cool graphics about the show, and then again with our stats, our numbers as we go through it. So I advise you to watch this one. But if you're listening, that's cool too. We're just happy to have you here, and you can subscribe on YouTube or any other podcast app on North-South Connection. We have tons of cool content, especially right now during WrestleMania season. WrestleMania 41 is around the corner, and we have all kinds of WrestleMania themed stuff going on. Plus, NOSO 95, our year-long stretch project here in 2025, paying tribute to the year that was 95 when you look at wrestling, pop culture, sports, and beyond. Tonight, JT and Marcus here to talk to you about the second pay-per-view in our season, 87-88, and that is Royal Rumble 1988. Marcus, how are you, my friend?
I'm good, and also, as an added incentive to tune in on YouTube, we both have a great hair and beard combination. Pretty strong on the tier list of podcasts here on the NoSo Network. But I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm ready for some rumbling, ready to throw some people over the top rope. I got my Mr. Hitman shirt on.
It's a nice shirt. Look at my Royal Rumble sweatshirt.
Yeah. Commemorate
Royal
the first
Rumble.
Mr. Royal Rumble, in my opinion. So, yeah, man, I'm happy to start this project back up, and happy to do so with the third man in the chair, Mr. Tim.
Yep, our disembodied voice. And if there was ever a podcast that like looked at everyone's individual Royal Rumble like history, that would be cool. Like going,
that would be cool.
Yeah, made a difference of the day. Anyway, season. I mentioned season. That what we do for seasons here is we start with the pay-per-view after WrestleMania, and we wrap a season with this WrestleMania following the following calendar year. So for this was a very short season. We started Survivor Series 87, ends at WrestleMania 4. An example of a longer season would be something like 2005. We'd start with Backlash 05 and end with WrestleMania 22 in 2006. So that's a season. It's Mania to Mania, and that's how we look at things here. We've already done 129 pay-per-views. We've done more than a handful, a couple of handfuls of seasons already. So we're on 87, 88, right in the middle right now with Royal Rumble 1988. But before we get into the show itself, we're going to pause and bring up Mr. Producer Tim to tell us the rules of how the show works.
Welcome to WWE WAR. I'm producer Tim. JT and Marcus have taken on the noble task of finding the true answer to the age-old question wrestling fans have debated for years. What is the greatest WWE pay-per-view of all time? To find the answer, WAR looks to explore each and every pay-per-view using a plus-minus scale at a baseline average, where things above average gain a point and things below average lose a point. WWE WAR grades on several categories, including match quality, build, commentary, atmosphere, notable moments, card structure, and rewatchability. The magic number to remember for WWE WAR is 2.5. That is the baseline number for an average replacement level match. Any grade higher or lower than 2.5 raises or lowers the average WAR score. For example, if JT and Marcus give a match a 3-star rating, then that match is 0.5 points above replacement. Add all of the totals up and you get your nice round number to give you your match quality grade. There's also a bonus. If there is a match that is 4.25 or higher, or 0.75 or lower, that match receives 2 points or loses 2 points, respectively, for either an all-time great match or an all-time bad match. By the time we're done, we will have composed the most comprehensive list ever for WWE pay-per-views to give you the answer of what is the greatest WWE pay-per-view of all time. Take it away, boys.
Wait a minute. All right. Thank you, producer Tim. Them's the rules. And we're going to dive right into Royal Rumble 1988. Not technically a pay-per-view, but it's really in the canon of pay-per-view type events. It fits into the aesthetic of what we're trying to do on this show. It's pretty much considered a pay-per-view historically. And it's an important one. It's the first ever Royal Rumble. It took place on January 24th, 1988 at the Cops Coliseum, Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. 18,000 in attendance. Vince McMahon, Jesse the Body Ventura on commentary. This did air on the USA Network. And if I remember my wrestling history correctly, gentlemen, I believe this went head-to-head with the Bunkhouse Stampede pay-per-view. Am I right on that?
Correct.
Okay,
Yep.
So this is counter-programming at its best during the peak of the wars between Jim Crockett and WWF. And if you're a fan of those wars, you can check out past Christmas specials here on the Place to Be podcast on the Place to Be Nation wrestling feed. You can hear all about the battle between Crockett and Vince McMahon. All right. So, and you can see here a little fun fact from producer Tim as well. Created by Pat Patterson, October of 87. Event was pitched to Dick Ebersol as a TV special, and it was received as the greatest thing for television. So there you go. So very important historically to the company. All right. So we start with our matches, Marcus. We're going to run match by match, give our scores, our grades, like you heard about in the rules, and then we'll get into the different other categories. So why don't we get going? The opener here is Ricky the Dragon Steamboat taking on Ravishing Rick Rude. Not much of a build here, just kind of throwing two of the more athletic guys in the company together. It's a little teaser of a feud that would be much better and well received about 4 years later in WCW when they really kind of crank things up and a little bit more heat behind that one. I will say, I do find this match to be rather disappointing. I think they had a chance to really kind of tilt the show and off to a good start with a banger that they're both capable of. Steamboat's in a weird position here. He's post IC title, kind of on his last legs in the WWF. I don't know how much his head and his heart is into the run. And then Rude is still kind of green. You know, he had been wrestling for a bit in World Class and in Crockett before jumping here. But he also, is still kind of learning as he goes, kind of coming into his own in the character. So this doesn't mesh. Plus, we get a weak finish, of course. This is a hallmark of the time in the WWF. So we get the DQ finish. But I've always posited, Marcus, whether it's on kind of our GWWE list where we talk about the greatest wrestlers ever, et cetera, that I think Rude historically in his WWF run is overrated. If you look at his kind of big pay-per-view match record, more often than not, it's lacking. His best stuff is with the Ultimate Warrior, and I would argue that Warrior is the reason maybe for those because his track record of big matches is better. And I think Rude, I don't think he gets great in the ring until WCW. And I think in this run here, the whole way through, he's a little bit overrated. And it starts by watching this match. It's like, this to me is a layup. Like they get time. It's not short. I think it's like 20 minutes, isn't it? Or close to it anyway. It's
Wow.
Yeah, 8:17:39. So I think they have plenty of friggin' time to tell a story. It's not like they're rushed, but it just never really gets going to me, and it's kind of boring. 2.5.
Yeah, I'll match your 2.5. It's a weird time for both these guys to work because again, like if you go to 91 or 92, or I guess specifically 92, this match would be a bazillion times better. But just here in early 88, you got Steamboat, who for me is a worker like that post WrestleMania 3 until he returns to WCW in January of 89, completely lost. So that's almost 2 years of his work I'm just completely checked out on. I don't think again, maybe it's his heart's not in it. He's got a lot going on, but yeah, I'm not high on the Steamer during that time period. And then Rude, it takes him a good while to adjust to New York and kind of putting the pieces together. And
It takes a while is an understatement. It takes about 4 years.
I like his 89. I feel like
Yeah.
he gets it in 89, but I can see what you're saying because he's worlds better once you get to 91 in WCW. But yeah, 2.5 for me. They get so much time, and it underperforms. So the 2.5 might even be generous with what these guys are capable of, but it never gets to like business exposing territory. So that averages out to 2.5 for us, and we will go to our next match of the Jumping Bomb Angels taking on the Glamour Girls for the women's tag team titles. The Jumping Bomb Angels get the win here. I went with the War of Three. Probably their highest profile match. Speaking of the Jumping Bomb Angels, they have in WWF. I know they got some house show stuff that's really good. But I think this is probably the crown jewel of their run for Titan. And it's cool that they get the spot on not a pay-per-view, but a counter programming special. It is a big spot, and it's really cool to see. So 3 for me.
And they retire, I mean, pretty like young. Like they don't have a super long run. Like they're done in I think 91ish, 89, 90, 91, somewhere in there. So like they're not like a team that has like a super long stretch. I mean, a lot of Japanese women of the time like retire usually they're considered old, like by like their late 20s or whatever. So their run as a team is 81 to 91. So this is kind of actually the tail end of things for them. But no, they look, we talked about this last episode a little bit with the Women's Survivor Series match where in your mind it holds up as like a classic. And I think this is one that really gets that reputation. Like, oh, that awesome match where the Bomb Angels are flying around. But you look back at it and it's like, it was good. It's ahead of its time. The Bomb Angels look great. But I went 3 stars. It's a best of 3 match. It gets 15 minutes. So again, they get plenty of time. And I'm not going to dog Judy Martin and Leilani Kai. Like this is a tall task for them to go in there and hang with these girls. And I think they do fine as the base, and they even amp up a little bit where they can. I would have went 2-0 with the Bomb Angels. I just would have jobbed the Glamour Girls straight out, but they give them the whatever nominal win in the match. I always found it funny that Jimmy Hart suddenly managed a women's tag team and the tag titles show up out of nowhere. It's funny. This is it for the women's tag belts too. Like we don't see them again until 2019 women's tag team titles. I don't think they ever reappear until then after the Bomb Angels win them and leave. So 3 stars to me. It's fine. There's some highlights, but I don't think it's like this legendary match that it has a reputation for. I just think for its time, it outkicks its coverage quite a bit. All right. Next up, we have the 20-man Royal Rumble, and it's interesting to watch out of the gate, right? So it's only 20 guys. We got the 2 minutes in between. Every guy like one at a time, like the standard rules. So there's not much delineation or deviation, I should say, from the rules we know and love. A couple of things I would ding it for is kind of lack of star power. They don't really have like big names in there, and there were guys that were, I'm guessing, working a B show somewhere like Savage and Honky and a few others out there that they could have thrown in this match to really beef it up. Instead, we got the likes of Sam Houston and Danny Davis and the Bolsheviks and the Bees. And where the fuck are the Young Stallions? They just had this big win at Survivor Series. They don't even make the Rumble. Butch Reed is in there. So, like, I mean, it feels very much like a mid-card, gimmicky match that you get on a house show of the time, right? Like the Legends Battle Royal, the Angelo Poffo was in, or whatever the hell, like in New Jersey, the random like, $1,000 challenge matches you'd get, or you could win a car by winning the Battle Royal. It felt very much like that a little bit with the level of talent that was in here. You get a very forgettable appearance in his pay-per-view debut of the Ultimate Warrior. Comes in at 18, lasts 4 minutes, eliminates no one, and Dino Bravo eliminates him. I think he could have been a good choice to win this, to kind of get his push off big. Duggan's a fine winner. Like, he's super over when he wins. He gets a big pop. So I don't hate Duggan being the winner. But it's very much a concept trial run. Like, I don't think it exceeds by any means. It's on the very low end of Rumbles, but that's fine. Like, I think it would have been crazy to think otherwise. I think Bret Hart's the MVP. He comes in at 1 into a new concept and really steers things. He's in 25 minutes, so he gets the Iron Man, barely over Jake, who goes 22. And, and actually it's almost 26 minutes of Bret. And he navigates and steers the bulk of the match. The match only goes 33 minutes, and he's in for 26 of them. So he comes in at 1 with Tito. That's a cool nod with the Hearts and Strike Force. So again, it's fun. It's a novelty. It's a half hour of your time to relive kind of the initial Rumble. So nothing but no hate on it. I just think it's a mid match at a low end Rumble, but I don't think it'd be crazy to expect more than that. So 3.25 for me.
Yeah, it's very much a trial. It's just getting the concept out there and seeing if it works, and it does work. And they'll start tinkering with it and perfecting it over the next couple of years. But it's cool to just see the concept kind of get laid out there, and enough familiar names in there to kind of keep it exciting. They don't take any like real risk with it. They don't really capitalize on the every man for himself concept. It's still very face heely. But again, those are kind of things that they would work out over the next couple of years. And Duggan getting the nod. He's low-key one of the biggest stars in the match. So
I'd say he's the biggest, honestly. Like, I don't know who's bigger than him in there.
And it ends up being
Brett,
like
Tito.
the crowning achievement of his career. Like,
to
this day, when they still run down the Rumble video, he's the first winner you see.
He's better than next year's winner. I'll say that.
All right. We do get a big segment that we'll be talking about a little bit later, but that is not a match. So our actual last match of the evening is the Young Stallions taking on the Islanders. The Islanders get the win, and I went with a 2.25. Just feels like they needed to fill the rest of the time.
Oh, yeah.
Whether that was going to be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever. Their job was to go out there and fill time. I believe, was this 2 out of 3 falls as well?
Yes. And this one does go 2-0, the Islanders.
Yeah.
And I think they only do the best of 3 because it's super annoying. So they do the whole thing where Powers, I think it's Powers, right? Blows out his knee, or Roma, whoever it is.
Yeah.
And they stop after the first fall to check, have him go to the back and get checked out. And they use that time to do a bunch of promos in between after the fallout of the contract stuff. So that's why they do the 2 falls, and then they roll them back out there and they just eat up the rest of the time until the pin. But I think this match sucks. See, 2.25 is what I went as well. And even that feels high probably, because again, the work is okay, but it's so, you can't even get into it. Like the announcers aren't even talking about it. They do the stupid break with the knee just to get the promos in. I think they're even doing one promo while the match is happening. So it's just like all over the place. Like, I get why they did it. And again, they're just trying to fill time. And it's kind of the old Science main event structure, having the big stuff earlier and then just kind of closed with a limp. So it's whatever. But yeah, there's your Stallions after the big win. As far as the Islanders get back over on them. And the Islanders are in a big storyline. They're in the Matilda storyline, so it's like, it's a big deal, all right. So if you take Marcus's grades, my grades, you net them all out, you get a total in-ring war score of 1. So we talked about this last episode, right? 4 is very good at Survivor Series. 1 is low mid, right? Like very below average, not awful in-ring, but not a lot to cook home about. So that kind of sets the tone already, where not a great in-ring show when you start to look at the aggregate categories. All right, let's get to our first overall category, and that is build. So this kind of covers anything that led to the show itself. And we have the Jumping Bomb Angels chasing the Glamour Girls for the tag belts since Survivor Series. The Hogan Andre false 3 count is still driving that rematch story. We heard about it at Survivor Series. We've heard about it a ton on TV, and we hear about it in this contract signing we're going to talk about in a minute. DiBiase, rocket push after his debut. He purchases Andre the Giant because he tried to buy the world title from Hulk Hogan and failed. Hogan refuses to sell. And Bobby Heenan sells Andre to Ted DiBiase for, I believe, $10,000. It's not much. I think he ends up, he sells them. DiBiase pays $100,000, and then I think Bobby a year later buys him back for like $10,000. So he has a great profit on the deal. But Andre is now with DiBiase, and the whole thing leads to this contract signing we'll talk about. With Andre is going to get his rematch, and then the Islanders, Bulldogs, Matilda stuff that we talk about.
All right. For our cons, we have Rude and Steamboat have no feud going on. Could have really used a hot story to start the show off. Maybe this could have been a Strikeforce versus Heart Foundation match or something like that. And then throw them back out there for the Rumble. Either way, we get no feuds really highlighted or really drive the Royal Rumble match. It's just a showcase. It could have benefited from some more personal stories in there. But again, the match was more about just getting the concept out in front of a live crowd and live TV, and things they will fix in the future.
Yeah. I know Savage and Honky are going to be fighting on the main event, so they probably didn't want to burn that here. I would have done Steamboat Honky. I would have put Rude in the Rumble and Savage in the Rumble to really amp it up. I think Steamboat Honky, like, they have the history. They didn't really have like a blow off on TV after the title change. This could have been like Steamboat's last chance or whatever you want to say. Do that. You can do your fucking DQ anyway. Who cares? It's Honky. Then you have Rude and Savage in the Rumble. And maybe Honky comes out and the Hearts team up, a double team Savage and eliminate him if you don't want him to win. And Honky helps pull him out or something. I think that would have added a lot of star power and given you an IC title match on here to help push things along. All right, so that gives us a total war score build of 2. So again, we're seeing some middling results here on the show. Let's get to commentary. We give it a point for Jesse being decked out. He looks really good, makes it feel like a special night because he's kind of dressed up nicely. Point for Vince trolling Jesse about helping Bravo, Jesse getting pissed. So there's a couple segments we haven't talked about yet. I guess, why don't we just cover, let's get through commentary, then we'll cover Marcus. But there's a weightlifting segment. So Jesse helps Bravo, and Vince is just all over him. Real strong job putting over the importance and history of Hogan Andre throughout this night by Jesse and Vince. A point for Jesse calling Vince a Twinkie when he's defending the Bravo segment, basically saying he doesn't know how to work out and he's weak and soft. And then good emphasis on the luck of the draw for the Rumble match itself.
Yeah, I wish I would go back to that for the Royal Rumble. Less about surprises, but let's focus on the cons for commentary. First, we have Vince and Jesse, thinking that Rude won by submission on an obvious disqualification.
One of my least favorite tropes, in especially in WWF, does it all the time. Just it's an obvious DQ. The guy then gets a submission hold or a pin. The ref taps them and they celebrate. It's like it's so fucking lame.
And like Rude makes it all the way up to like the aisle. Before they reverse it. So we get Vince and Jesse having no clue how to call the Jumping Bomb Angels. Don't call them by their name. They call them Red and Pink. Jesse asks their names. Vince stammers that he can't speak Japanese. So it's real bad. We get the obsession
and then he says,
friends.
Noreno, is that Italian to me? That's what Jesse says. It's really screwed up. It's bad. I mean, this is the owner of the company. Like, put some freaking effort in. And right away, he's like, I don't know who they are. I can't tell them apart. This is pink and that's red. It's like, it's so bad. And then they finally get the names, and then Jesse's just mocking them.
Or it's like, you're in charge. Why wouldn't you like rename them for their run? Like,
yeah, you could do that too, right? You don't need to keep these names, or just do the last names.
Yeah. We get the obsession over friends for the faces and heels. It's good to get the gimmick over, but it's way over the top here. Again, it's less about every man for himself and more about who's going to help who. We get Vince flat out saving the Bravo segment, or not saving it. He says it's boring.
Yeah.
He tries to save it. Gets the
Now he's
crowd
like, this
involved.
is a little bit long, pretty
Yeah.
boring.
Yeah. We get Jesse and Vince talking about everything and anything other than the tag match at the end, getting over every other story except for what's going on in the ring. And then Vince goes on and on about Thomas Toes, and Jesse calls him racist and compares him to Jimmy the Greek and brings up breeding. They get way off track on that main event.
Yeah, way over the top. I mean, just way, way out of control with it. Worse than the hard head stuff. I mean, just all in on Thomas Toes and yeah, no good. The commentary was a bit rough on the show, along with most of it. All right, real quick, let's talk about those segments. So it was one was there's the weightlifting. It's Dino Bravo doing the weightlifting, trying to set the record. Jesse Ventura is helping him, so they're on a podium. You know, he's doing it, but they take forever. They add the weight, they go up a bit more. This is where we should have done the break in the promo. It's like, forget the stallion stuff later. Like, they could have said, okay, Bravo is going to be gearing up to go to 450. Let's go take a break, whatever it is. We didn't need to see the whole thing. It does lead to years of storyline or commentary notes for them, because they forever talk about Bravo breaking the weightlifting record, Jesse adding the pressure, the helping him break the record, and Jesse saying it was 2 pinkies worth of pressure. That's like their constant talking point. So that's the first segment. The second one is a big contract signing, which is really, really well done. Hogan and Andre, DiBiase's out there, Jack Tunney, and this is for the main event rematch on NBC in early February, just a couple weeks after the show. And Andre ends up attacking Hogan, of course, throws a table on him. And it was a big deal. The Rumble is like the nominal match of the show, but the contract signing is really kind of the big selling point of the show. Like, that's what the hype's all about. That's the real main event of the show. And I think the only reason they didn't close with it is because they wanted to do the promos after to break down what happened. But
right.
All right. So for commentary, nets out to a -1, which for a Jesse Ventura show that's like usually reserved for like the Cole, Byron Saxton era stuff, like the negatives.
A good night for Cole and Saxton and
or Waller at his worst in like the mid 2000s with the puppies and all that stuff. Like, to have a -1 on a Jesse and Vince, who I like them together, that's a rough night for them. All right. So for atmosphere, we have a point for the really good pop for Steamboat when he comes out. Huge pop for Hogan when he comes out for the contract signing. Just, again, molten over. A big pop for the crowd getting into the Rumble concept. They understand right away the countdown. They're counting down, even though I don't know if there was a clock or not. It was hard to tell. But they get excited for every entrant. They're buying into it. Huge pop for Jake the Snake when he comes out for the Rumble. Just like monster over. Just a really big performance. And then Duggan being super over too when he wins. Like you said, I mean, it was a good choice to win. And he was, really over in the moment.
Absolutely. All right, for cons for atmosphere, we got the crowd quickly fading with the sluggish pace of the opener. Really long for an opener too, almost 20 minutes. We get the crowd starting with heat for Bravo, but it goes so long, they slowly start to check out. Vince has to get them going again from the commentary position. And we get the crowd silent as the jumping bomb angels run through some impact offense late in the match. The crowd really doesn't get up for him. No visual countdown hurts the reactions to the entrances a little bit. Again, something that would get ironed out in years to come. And then you can see the arena has started to empty out during that last match. It's real bleak.
It just doesn't make sense. Like, they should have just taped that after and aired it or done it backstage. Like, they could have done that Hogan, those promos after or backstage and just let the crowd go and don't do that match and just stay backstage or with Jesse and Vince breaking things down. I think having it out there in the arena, I think they wanted to have the atmosphere, but it ended up, backfiring, I think. All right. So that's a net of 0 for atmosphere. So not getting much help in these categories here. Kind of washes out. Let's get to our moments. A lot going on. +3 for the first ever Royal Rumble. So it's an all-time moment as part of this show. So that's big out of the gate. We gave a point for Bravo breaking that fucking bench press record. I mean, it is a big talking point on commentary for a long time to go. So kudos to that. A point for the Jumping Bomb Angels winning the tag team titles. A point for Hogan and Andre signing that contract for the main event, which is obviously a big deal. It's going to end up being the most watched wrestling event in history for a long time. That record holds up. A point for all the Rumble firsts. We actually did 3 points. So all the firsts, we bucketed into one thing. It's Bret Hart being the first #1. Bret Hart being the first Iron Man, Butch Reed being the first guy eliminated in a Rumble, Hacksaw Jim Duggan being your first Rumble winner, One Man Gang is your first iron, or I should say runner up. Junkyard Dog is your first number, in its essence, right? 30, the last guy in, number 20. And One Man Gang is the first Diesel push, right? The most elimination. So +3 for all those firsts that are set on this night. And then a point for the Ultimate Warriors pay-per-view debut as well. So there's a lot, for kind of a throwaway show, there are a lot of big moments baked into it inherently.
Absolutely. All right. For our cons for the show, we have no Bobby with Rude in the opener. Again, he must be at that B show. And then we get a Warrior barely in the match. Gets dumped out easily. It's forgettable. You're better off not including him and doing a squash match to showcase him.
Who would
But I
Bobby
also wonder,
who would he have been with? Who else did he even have? Like Bundy is kind of cooked.
yeah. Maybe Volkov?
Bobby? He's not with Volkov.
Oh, I thought you meant Bobby. Sorry, I thought you were thinking about who Warrior could squash.
No, I'm sorry. Who if
Bobby?
Bobby's not here, who else is even in the stable at this point? Because I guess Race.
Yeah,
without Andre, he's kind of running a little light.
He's with the. Were they not paired together though? Were they?
Who?
Bobby and Rude? Were they paired together at this point?
Yeah, I thought he was with him right away. He's with him at Mania.
Yeah.
I thought he was with him right away. I know I'll have to try and look up. I don't know, producer Tim. I know it's a lot with the slides, but I'm curious what the other show was on that night and if Bobby was there. Because I'm trying to think of who else he would have been with.
Maybe they saw how bad this match
the guys
was.
I can think of. Huh?
Maybe they saw how bad this match was and
he's
put Bobby with them.
All right, so that's a +8 for moments. So that's a big one. Good for them. A lot of moments. All right, card structure. A point for the Bravo segment. It's a good character building. They used Jesse to help push it along. It could have been a disaster with this Frenchie out there in Bravo. So having Jesse with him, I think was well done. Good stipulation for the women's match to let them show off and build excitement with the best of 3. Using the Glamour Girls to put over the Jumping Bomb Angels on a big stage was a good choice. They're consummate pros. They're not going to, outshine. They're going to be good bases and, kind of let the crowd get into the match. A point for doing the big contract signing here, excuse me, and booking the show on the main event. So that makes that show stand out even more. Like, I think the whole reason they did this was A, to screw with Crockett and the Stampede, and B, to give like a real national TV hard sell to Hogan Andre. And that's what they accomplished. That's the main goal. That's what they do. So kudos and points on that, because I think that's really what they wanted to do with this show. And then a point to start the Rumble with 2 trusted navigators like Brett and Tito to go out there and drive this match forward when you could have, screwed around and had someone else out there. But those 2 guys, you can trust to go out, understand a concept like this and drive forward.
Yeah, having Brett and Tito start is an all-time great call. Let's get into the cons for card structure. We have the long opener ends with the lazy finish, and we get the silly, dusty finish or whatever at the end. We get the Rumble being booked more like a one-off battle royal with random elimination choices and nothing really to build or drive anywhere. Like you said, it feels like somebody's trying to win a car or $10,000 or something like that. The show could have benefited from Savage and Honky in some way. You can feel their star power missing. Cramming another random best of 3 tag match with no heat to fill time at the very end. It's time better off to close off the show with focusing on the big interviews backstage, or get the Bulldogs in here to face the Islanders and have a match with some actual heat. And then lastly, Andre interview literally happens between the falls and the tag match, so everyone has to stand around with the fake pause due to Pretty Paul Roma's knee injury while Andre cuts his promo. So,
all right, and that gives us a total war score card structure of 0. So a complete wash.
Wow.
The B show on this day was in Halifax. And I don't see Bobby there either. So he must have maybe he just didn't make the trip to Canada. They were supposed to have shows in Ontario. There was another show scheduled for Ontario. So I think that was a double shot. It looks like maybe something happened because the show the day before in Ontario got canceled. That one got canceled. So it might have been I don't know, snow or something. They ended up in Nova Scotia. I don't really understand how this all worked, but that card is Sherry defeats Rock and Robin, Coco Beware of Wasika, the Rougeaus over the Conquistadors, Axe defeats Buddy Lane, subbing for Billy Jack Haynes, Smash defeats Ken Patera, Brutus Beefcake defeats Greg Valentine, and the Honky Tonk Man beats Savage by DQ. I would have bagged that show, and I don't think you needed to run Nova Scotia that friggin' bad. You probably could have just brought those guys all into Hamilton for this show. They are in MSG the next day, and Bobby's there. So, again, maybe he didn't make the trip to Canada, but he's there with the Islanders. That's his big act, obviously, is the Islanders. We're trying to piece together who he had in the stable. They fight the Bulldogs in the main event at that show, so. Maybe it was just with Matilda. I guess he couldn't come to Canada with a dog, perhaps.
Could have been.
All right. Let's move along here to our last category. It's rewatchability. So we gave a point to the Jumping Bomb Angels title win, which is a really cool moment. A point to DiBiase on the mic. Really great rant to get Hogan during the contract signing. Andre stoically reading in full. Tony keeps trying to talk, and Andre just is like, shh, I'm reading. Like he's really studying the freaking contract as DiBiase's just laying into Hogan. Just a heat machine, both of them at this point. Just really well executed. And then the Andre promo at the end of the night where he barks at DeGeorge to shut up during his interview was really funny too. Craig DeGeorge, shut up. So really good Andre heel work on the show.
Yeah, great night for Andre the French Giant. He's on one. For our cons for rewatchability, we get Rude's rest holds. We get Dino Bravo's segment going. Way too long, even though it's a good concept. Even with Jesse and Gene riffing and Vince on commentary trying to save it. And then we get Vince's absurd commentary for the Jumping Bomb Angels.
Rough.
Sprinkle in a little bit of racism by a little bit.
That's a touch. All right, so that's another wash. So another 0 for rewatchability. We had no all-time matches either way, so that's another 0. So honestly, Marcus, moments save this from being like an all-time bad show for us. Like the fact that it's the first, and honestly, it's the Rumble match that saves it, because of the 8, that's 6 points. Is the first Rumble, and all the firsts within the Rumble carried that whole category. So the rest of the show is extremely mid. Nets out to a total war score of 10, which is near the bottom, but not as low again as it could have been without that category. So of the 130 shows we've done so far, it is number 98. Up there with luminaries such as Survivor Series 1999 and Fastlane. Which Fastlane is that? 16, I'm guessing. Looks like 16. Fastlane 16. So, not great company when you look at it, where it boils down to. So definitely on the back end of our shows, the bottom 30-ish. And if you take out the Rumble firsts, which honestly you could argue have nothing to do with the show, right? I mean, it's probably like a bottom 10 in that regard. So, but yeah, it doesn't necessarily feel fair. It wasn't a pay-per-view. It wasn't meant to be a pay-per-view. Right. It was meant to be a special on USA. It was meant to hype the main event, which it did really well, and debut this concept. So it kind of gets a pass, even though it's finishing this low. So it's cool, whatever. We'll move along. All right. So let's move on to our top 10, and then we'll close things out for the night. At number 10, we have SummerSlam 1999 at 38.25.
And number 9, holding the tiebreaker, is SummerSlam at 1992 with a 38.25, and the tiebreaker being Mr. Hitman versus the British Bulldog.
Yep, the best match. Number 8, SummerSlam 2001 at plus 39 WAR.
WrestleMania 7 coming in 7th place with a 39.5.
Number 6 is Vengeance 05 at 41.
Top 5, SummerSlam at 1990 with a plus 42.
Number 4, Rumble 02 at 44.
Number 3, the SummerSlam 2005 with a 46.5.
Number 2 is WrestleMania 22 at 56.5.
And number 1, the Extreme Outlier, ECW One Night Stand with a plus 79.
We'll see.
That is
anyone
the first One Night Stand, of course.
Yes. Extremely high. We'll see if anything can take it down. So that'll do it for us here tonight. Hopefully everyone's enjoyed the Return of War. Leave us some comments or thoughts in the comments section on YouTube, or reach out to us on social media. Subscribe across the board. Again, it's WrestleMania season, so stick with us. We'll have a lot of cool stuff cooking. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time with WrestleMania 4 and our year-end awards already. Season in the books, Marcus, to wrap things up. So exciting times there. I want to thank producer Tim for all the hard work he did behind the scenes, as always, and continue to live your life above replacement level. We'll talk to you in a couple weeks on WWE WAR.